Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or a tutor. Even comedy fans who enjoy watching the stars of the future. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you on what to expect on this crazy circuit from those right in the middle of it. Today's guest is someone who should never be left unattended. He's not fond of London's underground slogans, and he's the only person I know to have put the links between terrorism and children's television. So please welcome to the stage, it's Mr. Seraj Alihan.
Thank you.
Hello,
thank you.
sir. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. I like the Spanish twist that you put on my name. It's Alijan. It's Alijan, but Alijan I like that.
I was looking at it. I meant to ask before I hit record. I was like, how do you say your last name? But then I realized it was too late.
That's all right. No. I like it. Like a few people have made the Alijan twist and I'm like, oh, this is actually, I might switch to that. This is a lot less, yeah.
A lot less sinister.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
Good. Just, it's a Monday and just had a bit of an early one. I know, excited to do this. This is fun.
So where did, we've seen each other on the circuit for fairly consistently, I think, over the last year or so.
Yeah.
So where did it kind of all begin for you?
My first ever gig was in May 2023. I did that that's when I first started, but the whole thing started. I didn't start with stand up. I started doing improv in late 2022. With my goal was to do stand up. I come from a background where I'm a software engineer. I don't really have much social experience with people, so I thought I'd test that doing improv because you're surrounded by people who are like-minded, similar in a similar boat.
Yeah. And
the goal was to get up on stage and do stand-up. So it started with improv. I started going to watch open mic shows, and it took me about 6 months to get the courage to get up and do that first ever gig.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought from what I've seen of you, you've been going longer.
Oh, I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you very much. Yes. I think if you've seen me around May, June, July last year, it was very obvious that I just started up because I had a really bad stutter. It took me a while to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And the only way I was able to get rid of it is just by gigging. I did 50 gigs in a span of 3 months and a half. I realized when I did my first ever gig, I realized that I want to do this at least for the short term, because I was enjoying the process. And I realized I immediately found out certain areas that I needed to fix. One of them was the stutter and the performance and the talking too fast and all of that stuff. That took a lot of practice just to get that out. But thankfully after I did a course in October in Abda Creek with Jeff Innocent.
Oh, okay.
That's when I started focusing more on writing and trying to write clever jokes, better jokes. That's where the unattended stuff came from that course. What's that now? A year and 7 months, something like that.
Yeah. So how did you find that course?
It's not for I wouldn't say it's for beginners. Okay. You need to have and all of the people that I did the course with had years of experience under their belt. If you have a specific need to hone in your writing, fix your writing, figure out techniques for writing and all of that stuff, that is the course to go to. But I don't think you have you would have enough of a grasp as a beginner. Yeah. Maybe do a few months of comedy and then go into it, because it's incredibly helpful. It is incredibly helpful. It's just that you need to know what you're looking for.
Okay.
It's and I would definitely do it again if I had the chance, because now I've learned a lot more since I've done it, and I've got better ideas of what I want to fix. So if I were to do it again now, I would probably benefit from it even more.
Okay, so it's definitely one you can keep going back to if you think it's...
Yeah. And Jeff Innocent is it's very hard to get him to say, that's a good joke. So when you do, it feels oh my God, this is, it feels like a genuine, because you get a lot of compliments on the open mic circuit, and a lot of the time it's very, I wouldn't say robotic. It's people just say it to each other, they would say good job to each other and just out of being nice. So that people telling me that's a good joke just kind of loses meaning. But with someone like Jeff, where he makes it very obvious that he's not there to just sugarcoat it for you,
Yeah.
When he tells you that's a good joke, then I was like, oh my God, this is all right. Maybe there is something for me there.
I can imagine, because he's quite an established name on the circuit in general, and I think he went on. I'm not sure if he's currently touring or not, but he's been on the tour this year and stuff like that. And I've seen him live at the Comedy Store a few times, and
I remember seeing him a long time ago.
He's amazing.
He's really funny. Yeah, I saw him I think back in 2012. I remember. So he's been going.
Yeah, with the stuff that you've done so far. So in the year that you've been doing open mic comedy, what's your best and your worst moments on stage?
Oh, my best and worst. I think for One Night Only in Hitchin was one of my best. Like it's up there in terms of my best moments. I had my 11th gig was, I think, still arguably my best ever gig.
Yeah.
It was a set that I did once. No, I did it twice. I did that set twice. I remember I wrote something completely new. I did it at the Cavendish Arms, a Comedy Virgin show. And it was ecstatic. Like that was like, I was like, oh my God, like I got to keep doing this. This was like one of my best. And it followed it. I went and did a gig in another place, did the same set, died on my ass. Absolutely. I wanted to quit comedy that day. It was a horrible, I don't want to I don't think it's still going anymore, but it was called what's it called? It was American Style Open Mic type.
Oh,
that one?
Yeah, I've seen that one advertised, but I haven't seen it advertised for a little while now.
It's been but it's just like, it's the room full of comedians. You know the shtick. I think you've seen it before. It's room full of comedians. Everyone is looking at their phone. It was, because I was still new, I took it personally, because like when you're that early on, if people don't laugh, it's like, how dare you not laugh? This is, you understand what I'm doing? But yeah, that was like to me, it's still not the worst ever, but the contrast coming off of the gig before, it was such a twist. But I think those two gigs were pretty much cemented like early on, that okay, this is not going to be as binary as I thought it would be. It's not you come up with a joke, people laugh, and it's going to be people laughing all the time.
I think that's one of the hardest things to get your head around, isn't it? Is when you kind of look at something, you go, this has worked perfectly. Yeah. And then you go somewhere else and go, what? I don't understand what's happened. But
what I notice is that sometimes it works. There's something that you have to do, is that when you tell a joke and it doesn't hit, you have to have a way to keep going without seeming like you've like you were expecting a joke and it didn't happen. Because it would show like as a disappointment in my face when I don't get the laugh, and that kind of feeds off to the crowd. Whereas when I'm getting the laugh at the moments that I'm expecting it, it just makes the next punchline, like makes me do it much better, because like I'm just riding off of the high of the response that I'm getting. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you have to learn how to like perform the exact same way, regardless of the reaction of the crowd. And yeah, that was one of those moments that I had to like realize that this is gonna take a lot more work than just going up on stage and just winging it,
Yeah. So was that your worst moment on stage then at American?
That one is it's up there. There's a couple of them. One of them I went to a night where I did so badly. You know how they do a story afterwards and they show every comedian?
Yeah. You weren't in it.
This guy wasn't there. I was like, all right, I'm never going. I was like, I understand. I was like, I was probably telling me not to come back. So I was like, all right, I'm never coming back.
Oh dear.
That's probably, I think that should be my worst, to be honest with you.
We've all had disasters, haven't we? And it's having those and knowing how to get over it. And like you say, when you do a gig and you come away and you go, am I cut out for this? And you start questioning yourself. But
yeah, that's a death trap. Yeah, that's because that immediately is going to like affect how your first joke is going to be performed. Like if you have like any sense of doubt, that first joke is not going to be performed to its full potential. It's like, it's amazing how that works. It's consistent. Like every time I go in and like I start questioning my joke, like my opening joke. Yeah. It's just, that's it. It's like, I've lost the battle already. It's
because we both went through the same, I think maybe mine was slightly worse than yours, same experience on the same night in the same place.
Are you talking about the blackout?
Yes.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. I can't forget that. Because honestly, that night was the night I actually thought about, that's it, I'm done.
I
Seriously,
see.
it was
No,
horrible that night.
I don't remember you doing that badly. I just remember the crowd getting really rowdy. And I remember like I was sitting at the back and there was one lady, she was just heckling the whole time and distracting the crowd. So you had the people around you, they were listening to your jokes. But in the back, everyone is looking at this lady who was just basically she's like, kick him off, get the card up, get the card up. And I think the host mentioned that afterwards when he got up. It's like someone at the back really didn't like him. So it's like,
yeah.
And I was right, like I was like literally like very close to that woman, and she was just kept shouting like, "Yeah, kick him off!" And she distracted the people at the back, and it's just I think you should definitely go back.
Oh, I'm going back. I've got it booked in the calendar. I'm going back for vengeance, but there's a group of us going. There must be about 8 or 9 of us.
Oh, I see. That actually works as well. Like going in with people that you know, because it just makes it a bit less nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But no, I went back. So I think that was my 3rd time ever doing it. And yeah, I completely died on my ass as well.
I think we were the 2-minute men, literally, wasn't it? Almost like that. And
no, because the thing is, like for me, I came off the first time I did it. I had like 4:45. That's how long I made it.
Yeah.
I judge it because you can buy the video and you can like the length of the video is how I think like how long I've made it. And the second one was 4:51. So I was like, okay, 5 seconds every turn. I'm getting closer. It's either this time or the next time. And then the 3rd time I get gonged off at 2 minutes. And then, I went back afterwards and I eventually beat it. And then I went back again and I got gonged off at 2 minutes as well. So that was the last time I went there. So it's all over the place.
What was the feeling like when you actually beat it after like the 3 attempts beforehand didn't quite go according to plan?
That music when it played, it's not the music, the actual playoff music.
Yeah.
It felt like such a fucking rush. I didn't process it for for the next hour. I was just like, what the fuck just happened? I need to leave. I need to just go home. But like I knew I wasn't going to beat it because I got a card. I did like a Muslim Harry Potter joke that they didn't like it, and it's. But the thing is, like, it gave me so much overconfidence. I went into the next time. Like the next time, I was like, I'm just going to do these jokes better. Yeah. And I just fucking got gonged off. But I was fine with it. I was like, I just having that one win. Now I'm okay with like not getting gonged off because like I've at least proven to myself that I can get it at least once.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. One day it'll happen. It was going to be. I tell you what, I don't think you can contain my excitement or shock if it ever does happen. I'll be there and I'll just collapse on the floor and go, "Oh, that's it. I am now quitting comedy. I've done it. I've done what I needed to do." I've got validation from 200 random strangers who decided, oh, he's not too bad, actually.
And it really is random. Like, because sometimes I see people who are like excellent comedians, like some of the funniest people ever, and the crowd just doesn't just vibe with them. I know someone who won it, like literally, like got the champagne bottle, and then won the next time and got off at 3 minutes. So it's like. It is a weird one, but I like a lot of people told me it is the best way to judge, like not just your jokes, but your ability to deal with a crowd.
Yes.
Because that's what makes a pro comedian. If you're a professional comedian who wants to get paid, you can't use the excuse of like, this wasn't my crowd. At least in my, like, you should be able to navigate a room no matter how hostile it is towards you. And you can see a lot of examples of professional comedians that manage to win over a room. But I think, we're still at a stage where we can use that excuse. And like sometimes going up and seeing a room, receiving your jokes and then turning it around, that is one of the things that I want to check in my, as in 2025 is being able to do that, to bring a room around.
Yeah.
And that's all about being in the room, really, and not disassociating when you're on stage.
That's one of the hardest things I think it is, especially if you're fairly new to the circuit. You're kind of so focused on your 5-7 minutes, whatever it is whenever some kind of distraction happens, it throws you off. And then you have that beacon that comes above your head that basically says, this guy is so new. He's now forgotten where he was, doesn't know what he's doing, and give him 3 seconds and he'll know where he's back. But there's that moment where it's like, I've shown the torch on you just to say, I'm not a professional.
Yeah. I'm still figuring this out. I'm still learning this. Yeah. And That still happens. Yes. Like it's basically, I think, what did he say? Like this is something that I learned during the course that I did. It's all about like gathering enough experiences so you can build up contingency plans for when things don't work.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. Just gigging as much as possible so you can experience all of those little things for the first time, so you can have contingency plans for them when they come up next. And that could be getting heckled in a specific way, or maybe asking the crowd a question and then getting answers that you would have never expected.
Yeah.
That can develop into a joke in itself, but it is really about just doing a lot of grunt work. And like last week or the week before, I ran into things where I didn't know how to deal with it. Like this one it's going to sound like I'm flexing or gloating, whatever, but I did a joke and someone really liked that joke. They just kept laughing and laughing and laughing. And I didn't want to keep going because some other people were distracted by their laugh.
Yeah.
So I ended up making the whole thing awkward by just not talking, because I'm like, what do I do now? Because these people are waiting for me to tell a joke. I'm waiting for her to stop laughing.
Yeah.
And it created a very awkward, and it threw me off, and I had to put myself together to get back on track. Because again, I was having that moment where like 3 to 5 seconds of like what was I? What do we need to go? Which bits do I forget? And so it's being able. I still don't know how to deal with that situation in the future, but it's something that happened, and I gotta take into account for. But yeah, it's all about that. It's all about just gathering those weird experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I had one last night where I was just doing my usual bits, and then I had a joke in my head that kind of fitted in with part of the routine, and I just chucked that in, and it got a really good reception. As soon as people were laughing, I was there enjoying the moment they were laughing at this joke.
Yeah,
and I was like, I've lost track of where I was now. But then I kind of made it obvious that I had, and then I got another laugh, and I've sort of managed to buy myself another few seconds of time. But that doesn't happen in every room, and when it happens and it works, you're like, yeah, okay, this is a in the room moment. This is fun. But when it doesn't work, you're like, how do I still be in the room? So when we've been kind of like talking about jokes as well, can you remember the first ever joke you told on stage?
Yes. What was it? So it was a joke about my name, right? It's because my name is Seraj Alihan. Well, the joke was that like my mom called me Seraj Alihan, which is a very religious name. I don't like it because it doesn't reflect me as a person. But the alternative was a name that my grandma has given me, which was Qahtan. So I really dodged the bullet. And dodging bullets is just, morning cardio in Iraq. That's the... So it's, as you can tell, this is like a bit like, it's poorly written, but like, that's the kind of like, the idea is like, I would say I would dodge the bullet and then I take a pause, and it's like, but then again, dodging bullets is just morning cardio in Baghdad. And that was basically my first ever joke that I told. I told that for, I think 5 times, and then I stopped doing it.
Why did you stop?
The thing is, like, I have a lot of jokes that I just like the what's it called, the Teletubbies one. I still haven't told that one in like 5 months now.
Wow, that's one of my most favorite jokes on the circuit. Honestly, it really is. There's a few people. I can't name everybody, but there's a few people that have some standout jokes for me. When I see them and they don't do it, it's like to me, you've not played your greatest hits. You've gone to a concert. And one of them's like, is Christian Allman, when he talks about, I don't know, I don't want to ruin it, but he talks about having a Pakistani girlfriend and that he met her in Kent, but it wasn't him standing on the beach with a bunch of flowers waiting for the boats to come in. And when he told that, every time I've heard it, I love it. I think the way he delivers it so much better than obviously I've done it and his own style, but I think it's great. And the Teletubbies one, I love because
you've seen two versions of it, right? Yeah, because you've seen the one where the reveal is at the end, and the one where the reveal is at the beginning. That one I came up with it at the Jeff Innocent course as well. It's that fucking course is really good with writing. No, it's just I'm trying to figure out an overall context for it. So like it just it comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I remember watching this TV show, and like it just, it gets the laugh, but I think I can get a much bigger laugh if I put it in a context. And the context that I'm trying to walk it into, which is really difficult to get it in 5 minutes, is it's me, like when I moved to this country, I watched a lot of the movies that I used to watch back home, but I realized so many scenes were cut out in the version that we used to watch back home. And the dubbing made things like different and all of that. So I want to put it in a context where like I don't remember like what I watched back home and what I watched in here, and I go, let me like I think the way I'm gonna work is like, oh yeah, let me describe you the show and you tell me if this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And then I immediately start, oh, it's fucking Rehab for Suicide Bombers. So and so it's I need to figure out about like an overall context for it, because I know like I did that at the Blackout and it didn't do very well because it just came out of nowhere. So it's one of those things where like I know it works. It's just it needs like an extra kick, like maybe find out like a different angle to go into it to make it hit a bit harder.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about because I like to ask everybody, what's your favorite joke? How did it come about, and how has it changed over time? Mm-hmm. I'd like to focus on that joke and how it's changed, because, like you say, you've done the reveals at the start originally, and then the reveals that you've flipped it. So, what made you think that needed to happen, and what was your thinking behind changing it?
Because the first version, it felt like I was telling the joke, telling the punchline, and everything afterwards was just explaining why I just told them was funny. So it was like, it felt like a joke and an explainer. Whereas when I flipped it and I started saying like, oh, I remember watching this TV show about a bunch of suicide bombers in rehab. If you want to know how you put suicide bombers in rehabs, you put them in an area with no buildings, you make them live underground. We used to watch them 24/7. They come out, they try to blow things up. There's nothing to blow up. So they go back in and they go on this repeating cycle. There was 4 of them. And the TV show was called The Teletubbies.
Yeah.
And so there's there's other pointers where I lead them to different, where I would say there was 4 of them. They had different colored costumes. Some I see some faces start to light up, going, what's he talking about? Yeah. And then I say the Teletubbies, and that's when the big laugh hits. And I stop there. That's it. Because the Teletubbies gets the biggest laugh.
Yes.
Whereas before I used to go I used to love watching the Teletubbies. It's just something about them having electronics near their abdomens that make them so relatable.
Yeah.
And that gets the biggest laugh.
Yeah.
And then everything I say about that, afterwards, it gets laughs, but the laughs get less and less and less, because we get the point. So you need to keep giving us more punchlines to explain the same point.
Yeah.
So that's what I noticed, is that I was getting the biggest laugh at the beginning of those setup. I've got 3-4 punchlines. The first one was getting the biggest laugh, and then it was just fizzling out. Whereas when I flipped it, I was getting less laughs overall throughout the explanation. Sometimes people laugh at the idea of suicide bombers in rehab, because I think I think just suicide bombers in rehab is funny.
Yeah.
But the big laugh happens at the end when I say, oh, it's the Teletubbies. And then I can see people's eyes connecting all of the details backwards, because I sprinkled them in, and they go, oh shit, yeah, they live in the field. They've got a fucking son that comes up and tell them it's,
Yes. Nobody said to you, this is how I think you could change it or anything. It was just a case of looking back and going, that's the biggest laugh. I need that to be at the end.
Yeah, if they laughed, to me, that's no one really told me how to fix it. I just noticed that I found it frustrating that the biggest laugh was happening at the beginning. And one of the biggest things that you have you learn in comedy is that when you're doing a bit, the biggest laugh has to be at the end. There's a Jerry Seinfeld video that I watched, and I keep watching that over and over again, because it's a 5-minute video where he talks about the importance of using funny words in a joke to make it funny throughout, and how to get the laugh at the end. I watched that video. I was like, okay, how can I make that joke turn around so that the biggest laugh happens at the end? And it was a bit of a process. And when I did it for One Night Only in Hitchin, that was my first attempt at doing it at the reversed way.
Because the interesting thing was that I'd seen it before, and then I saw it for One Night Only. And when you started doing it for One Night Only, I hadn't twigged. I hadn't worked out that was where you were going at that point. I obviously knew the first one, but I was so engrossed in the way this story was being told, I hadn't gone, this is the Teletubbies bit, until you did the reveal at the end. I was just like, that to me is that's the perfect kind of joke in that I know the joke, but you changed it so much that I didn't know the joke, if you see what I mean.
It's enough change, to make it a bit fresh. And that's, that happens a lot with a lot of the jokes where like I write it and it works. I get bored of it. So I park it. And then like 3 months later, like 3 a.m., I'm just laying in bed, not able to sleep. And I go, oh, this is a new angle that I can take, write it down. And it just, it's a bit of a random moments that happen like this.
So is that your favorite joke?
It's not. No, it's not. It's definitely not. It's definitely up there. It's one of my favorite jokes. But it's the unattended stuff because that never not worked.
Yeah.
And it's like I have now I expanded like the whole thing where it's like I do the unattended Baghdadi towards the end. Now it makes a lot more sense because I make it all about me trying to date as a Spanish man. Right. And and it fails because of my accent and all of that. And then I do like my accent gives me that it factor. And then people go, what's the it factor? I was like, oh, it's the it and see it sorted.
Yeah.
And so that I always pretty much open with that now. So but the thing is there is your favorite joke to tell and there is your favorite joke because it works all the time. That one is my favorite because it's just consistent. I can rely on it to get laughs and to get the people going. But some of my favorite jokes are jokes that I don't tell that often simply because of the fact that I don't know how to walk the crowd into it, into that set in a period of 5 minutes. I have I have about a 2-minute bit about me finding out that my neighbor was a terrorist basically. And it's fucking crazy shit, and it was I still don't know how to work it into it because I think it's really funny. I say I found out one of them was a terrorist and I went and told my mom and my mom was really surprised. She was like, oh my God, I would have never guessed out of those 3 lovely little boys that this one was going to be a terrorist.
Yeah. But
I thought it was obvious. And I think you all will know why when I tell you their names. And I say their names were Ayad, Nihad, and Jihad. And so it's very obvious. It was Ayad, by the way. It wasn't Jihad. But so that's basically the joke. And I still need to figure out overall context for it. And because that ending is not really, it doesn't really have a much of it. People really laugh at that. When I say the names, and I've got a tag now where I say it's like the Muslim Daffy Ducks. It's I'm living next to the Iraqi Louis Howie and Dowie. And you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so it is, but there's no point to it. It's funny because one of their names leads to them being the guy who was the terrorist. But it's I need to figure out an overall point. But to me, that is the funniest shit ever. That's the kind of stuff that I do find funny. And it's one of the jokes that I'm still trying to work into a 5-minute set. Hopefully I'll try it at the Blackout next year.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of jokes that I like. And it is a bit tough when you have a joke that works all the time, but you kind of just lose enthusiasm with it. And for me, that's kind of happening with the unattended stuff.
Okay.
But it is very consistent, so I can't really help it. I can't just ditch it.
Yeah, I guess that there's certain things you always know that are going to work, and especially if it's something that you do at the start, because you've got the crowd on your side, kind of thing. I always think I try to, if there's a bit of a joke or something or a bit of a routine that's I feel like it's getting a little bit stale, I will try to add in an extra line here or there, just random words, and maybe a new bit of a punchline that I can then see if that works. But then I always have the backup of something else is going to cover it if it doesn't quite work. That
is dangerous because that can lead the crowd into thinking that you're just meandering.
Yeah.
So the way that I learned how to do a joke when I did the course was that you got to have an overall point.
Yep.
And everything you say got to lead to that point. You can't you can have some really funny one-liners in the setup that will get really big laughs and will keep the crowd going. But if it directs them away from the overall point, final headline is not the final punchline is not going to hit as hard.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of things. It's using economy of words, but also economy of laughter as well, because you don't want to waste the biggest laugh on things that have nothing to do with the overall point of the bit, because then people will immediately go, okay, well, why did you go that way? That was a cheap laugh that you just got from me, because your overall setup is not very good. So the crowd is like instinctively is very smart, and they can tell when you're just throwing in punchlines just to get cheap laughs out of them.
I do wonder, we say that the crowd are very intelligent. I do wonder sometimes, though, do they actually know why something doesn't make sense? Or do you know what I mean? I think there's a real science behind comedy and being on stage. I come back to an example sometimes where a lot of people go by the rule of three.
Yes.
And I think sometimes if you have somebody who's in the moment and you give them two, their brain instinctively goes, I'm missing something.
Yeah.
But do you think they know they're missing something because they're going, they should be doing it in threes? Or is it just a case of this doesn't feel right because I'm used to hearing it in a particular way? Do you see what I mean?
I see what I mean. And the rule of three is a particular one because it works subconsciously. You start with the first thing, and then the second one takes them one way, and then the third one brings them back to the reveal. So that is a specific. With that one, I think it's just instinctively we realize it because it's just like if it's only two, it's either this or that.
Yeah.
That is not funny until you bring the third bit to do the twist.
Yeah.
So with the rule of three, I don't think they're instinctively aware of it because I think this country in general is like obsessed with like doing 3-word slogans, you know?
Oh God, don't. Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. So I think it's just baked into British culture, like subconsciously where we're expecting the third thing to have the point. You can have things that meander beyond the 3-point thing. Like my favorite example is when I watch a bad movie and I see a lot of dialogue happening that doesn't contribute towards the end. I'm like, this is wasting my time. Like it's kind of that same feeling that I get when I watch someone do a bit and they do punchlines that don't lead to the overall point, and the overall point has nothing to do with the beginning and all of that. There is no connection. You see that disconnect in your head immediately, and you go, I'm watching a bad movie right now. This is, it's like I'm not going to pay attention to the words anymore because there's a lot of filler. And there is nothing my ADHD brain loves more than not paying attention to a movie. So I'm constantly looking for anything. Like, okay, these guys are rambling. I can look at my phone right now. That's my best example that I can use to describe it.
I think that's actually quite an interesting point when you just brought up this saying like this country and 3-word slogans. I'd never kind of.
Oh, it's all of that. It's like, what is it called? Like the seeds say it's sorted. That's a 3-word thing.
Yeah. Every political campaign is 3 words. I've noticed that. But I've never thought of it as a thing that's baked into almost like British culture.
Yeah.
Until you mention it, and you're like, oh yeah, he's actually right. It's all those get Brexit done. It's that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's a bit of an obsession. Yeah.
I'm intrigued now if that happens around the world in other places, or if it's just a British thing.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
Kind of going back to the favourite joke thing.
Mm-hmm.
And how did it kind of come about, and has it changed over time? Have you added things to it? Have you taken things away? Or have you just come up with the concept and gone, that's it, that's the joke?
It's usually like this. The first draft, I stick to it, I don't change it, and I perform it, and I judge after a while if it's good or not. And if it's not good, what I tend to do is I just park it. Because I don't know why, but like when I have a joke that is like focused around this, like written in a specific way, or I write it in a specific way, my brain just can't get out of that mindset until I take a break from that joke.
Right.
Like I'm not able to modify it freely because my brain is just locked into those parameters that I started with. So the only way I can add to it is by just stopping that joke. I don't do it for like a few months, and then I get back to it with a fresh set of eyes and like a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
I do that to all of my jokes. Like it's one of the most important things that you could do. I do writing pretty much every day. Like I modify things. I never tell the same joke the exact same way, which might work against me, because I think when you get to a level where you have to trust people to book you, you have to do the jokes in the exact same way so that they're a bit more relaxed when they book you.
Yeah.
So that is something that I perhaps should stop. But I try to change things. I try to modify like the middle bit. Like for example, with the Teletubbies, shift it around so that I change the punchlines, or figure out why the final punchline is not working very hard, and how you could do that. What else can you do in the middle to lead people into laughing much more towards the final punchline?
Yeah.
And for example, like the unattended stuff, I used to just say, like, people from Baghdad are called Baghdadis, actually, and but you should look at me more like an unattended Baghdadi. That one gets a much harder laugh when I put it in the context of dating, and I go, oh, actually, I'm single now. I'm an unattended Baghdadi.
Yeah.
That gets a much bigger laugh because, oh, single, unattended, that makes a lot more sense. So yeah, it is a bit of a science, but it is fun. It's fun, like moving things around and seeing like how predictable people can be sometimes.
I think it's interesting what you just mentioned as well about being consistent and knowing your material. Because I've kind of, this probably is not the best advice at the moment, but what I'm doing at the moment is I know my material, but I don't know it word for word.
Yeah.
I know the sections, I know where they go, I know the gist and the rough bits of the punchlines and stuff like that. I know them, but I could never recite it 2 or 3 times in exactly the same way, because I try to give myself some a bit of headroom, such in a room, to allow me to play around a little bit and try and get comfortable. In essence, the joke stays the same, but if I say the same thing exactly the same way every single time, I find that I might be missing out on a better way of doing it by just being a little bit looser and just playing with the room and going, and then you come to the end and go, that's a better way of doing it. I never thought of it until I did it, said it out loud, and then you get the feedback.
I see what you mean. Well, I used to do it like this, like for the better half of pretty much the first year, I didn't really write down all of my jokes. I would just write bullet points. And I noticed that when I have the joke written down word for word, I perform it with a lot more confidence than if I had little gaps where I'm depending on myself ad-libbing to get laughs.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll get to the point in the future where I'm confident enough to do the ad-libbing and where it works like most of the time. But for me, my best jokes are the ones that I have written down word for word, and I perform them word for word. And I think having the confidence in knowing that it works will make you perform that joke with more confidence. So like it'll be you'll be more convincing when you're doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a bit of a weird balance, because sometimes I see people like write their jokes word for word and they're just looking at a printed document, multi-pages, just a giant block of text. And I'm like, that's not good, right? You need to have it like if you write down your joke and it looks like a giant block of text, that's not a good joke. Mm-hmm. You need to change it so that it's in like naturally it looks like it's a bullet point.
Yeah.
Or like simplified enough that it looks like a bullet point, because that means every single one of your lines, whether it's a setup or a punchline, it doesn't ramble on for too long. It gets to the point very quickly. So yeah, I think I would say try writing down everything, and it's difficult. Like especially when you develop the style of ad-libbing, you become very frustrated when you try down like the joke, because I'm writing down the joke and I start ad-libbing in my writing. And I start going off in tangents and then I realize, oh shit, like I spent half an hour and I actually just wrote the first 2 lines of my jokes, and I spend the next half an hour just meandering trying to explore. But then sometimes that comes up, you come up with new bits that way. But having something, especially like with a pen and paper, just sitting down and writing things out, that really does help when it comes to performance. And that's something I should have learned much sooner, because I learned this in the course and all of that, but I had to like really like force myself to write all of my jokes down. And it's not fun. It's not the fun part of it, but it's very much necessary. I really do think that.
Yeah, I still go through. I still got like the current set I'm doing. It's kind of roughly in bullet points, or it's in very small, like 1-2 lines of text.
Yeah.
And even like yesterday at a gig, I'm sat at the bar and I'm just looking through the notes, going, okay, yeah, there's that bit again and that bit, and then I start editing bits. Like, you don't need the word "it's" in that point. That's not making any addition to it.
The R's and all of those. Yeah.
Yeah, you've kind of adding extra words in that add no substance to it. They even might dilute the actual joke because you've lost that little bit of punch because you're using too many words. And even like nearly 2 years into this, it's still such a big learning curve. And you look at other people on the circuit and how they look like they're loose and everything on stage. You go, oh, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be.
But then you watch them a few times and you realize there is a method to that madness. It's not just improvising this and they just happen to be funny every single time.
Yeah.
There is a script. There's certain things that get repeated, and like there's a lot of comedians on the circuit that I watch and they look very, very natural until you watch them 3 times in a week, and then you go, okay, you're just very good. And so it's like this is something that I used to be like I need to get used to, whereas like being able to perform the same way, because I see them perform it with the same level of consistency and confidence, whether they're getting the reaction that they want or not. And that's the point that I want to get at. It is a bit difficult because it's very difficult not to become a mirror of the audience's reaction to you, especially earlier on. But we'll see next year, hopefully.
I think actually Jeff Innocent's actually one of those people that can fool people quite well. When you see him do a live set and the way he roams around the stage and he kind of tells a particular joke to a particular section of the audience. Yeah. It's very much feels like it's in the moment. And then you see it 2 or 3 times, like you say, you kind of go, okay. But that's the thing that everybody wants to get to. Yeah.
And he's got a very good way of telling material, but making it seem like he's talking to people, right? Like he's talking to the crowd. He's not performing jokes to them.
Yes.
It just feels like he's just he's just the really loud guy at a pub table and everyone is paying attention to him. And that's the kind of like energy that you get. And again, it takes a lot of time to get that energy. Some people inherently have it. They go up on stage and they're very much likable, and you want to sit there and like listen to them, and they're not stuttering, and their writing is very conversational. But it's just another one of those things where you got to make like things more like my set is a lot more conversational right now, because like I put breaks in between the jokes to like gauge the reaction of people. I have backup like lines when things don't work, so that when a joke doesn't work, I don't just move on and disconnect from the crowd, because the crowd is going to be thinking, oh, that joke didn't work. You got to address it. You can't just move on to the next one. So having all of those contingency plans creates the illusion that it's a conversation rather than just a set of lines being told to a crowd and expecting a laughter.
Yeah, there's a couple of jokes I've got in mind where they're not thinking jokes, but they do take that little 1 or 2 seconds for people to get. I never really understood that when I started. So I tell a joke and I'm like, of course they should understand it straight away, because
immediately,
I've written it.
Yeah.
But then you realize that sometimes they don't. I'm trying to get that confidence just to stand there just for 2 seconds. And then you wait for the laughter to come, because you know the laughter's going to come, but you allow them to catch up. And if they don't catch up, it's a throwaway line. Like, some of you will get it later, don't worry about it. And then those that got it laugh. And you've brought that thing into the room where everybody's like, we're here. I don't understand what the joke was, but it seemed funny.
Yeah. I have one joke that I'm telling now where it does that, where it takes a while. It's not because like it's a thinking joke. It's just it's a bit of a context joke where I say, like, I talk about certain things that are like, that I have, like, anxiety and like having nervous tics and things like that. Yeah. And I say like, I mention it for sympathy. And then I mention I grew up a fat kid. And I say, I'm not mentioning this for sympathy. I'm mentioning this as a flex, because I wasn't just any fat kid. I was a fat Iraqi child. And then people is like, why is that funny? It's like, that's impressive because the country was under sanctions. And then there's a gap, and then people get it. So like now if it go, like I judge, like it takes about maybe 3 to 5 seconds before I start to get a laughter out of this one. Yeah. And then as soon as I get it, I just go, I'm just saying the odds were stacked against me. And I go, do people know what I mean when I say sanctions? I go, it's basically what happens when the Americans put your country on a diet. I just call it geopolitical Weight Watchers. And then, so it's like, then that's when it gets the biggest laughter. But the first one usually takes about like 5 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds for the laugh to take again, because people are, okay, how the fuck did he manage to get fat during sanctions? And so but you got to have faith that the laugh will come. Mm. And that faith will become a lot more solidified if you have a contingency plan for when it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, because I've got one bit where I talk about my name spelt with a C, and I go into a bit about that. As I got sick of having to spell my name every time I said it growing up, so I thought about changing it. And I went to my mum one day and I said, I would like to change my name, and she tried to amuse me and said, "What do you want to change it to?" And I said, Paul or Phil was my last 2 options, and she said, "But your surname's Cox."
That's good.
And it just sometimes it takes people going, Paul Cox, Phil Cox. Ah,
it's a good misdirection because like you make them think that you're trying to change your surname, but yeah, that's fun. That's good. Yeah.
so yeah, it's I like doing things like that and just finding those. They're not particularly strong jokes.
But it's a good, but it's a
fun.
joke. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not just like a shock line. It's not just a haha. Like these are funny words. Laugh at them. There is like the pullback and reveal of it. Aspect of it. So you see the technicality of it.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Duncan Hart here from episode 37. If you're enjoying this podcast, give it a like, a 5-star rating, and a follow on whatever app you're using right now. Mark will be forever grateful. Now, back to this cracking episode.
On the open mic circuit then at the moment, what would you like to see change on it? If anything. And what do you like about it in general and what don't you like about it?
Well, like there is a lot of them. And I think some people might think of that as a bad thing, but I think like having a lot is good. Too many of them are bringers. To me, that's like, it is a bit difficult to do bringer gigs when you're trying to do them 5 times a week.
Yep.
I don't know what the solution is to that. Like, but because for me, I'm very much, I try to be as professional about it as possible. So I always show up on time. But a bringer is another human being that I have to worry about being consistent. And a lot of the time it doesn't work. And I've had many times where I would go to a gig and my bringer just can't make it in time. Yeah. And then they take me off the lineup. They take me off the lineup and I don't perform. And I'm like, I just came from Hertfordshire down to London and I did everything that I'm supposed to do, but something happened with my bringer. And now I basically ended up spending like nearly 20 quid and about 4 to 5 hours of commute. Yeah. So it's like you tend to fall into that quite often. I do understand it's a necessary evil, and the fact that I'm still having to do them is probably reflects on me, on how shit I am as a comedian, because people probably would move on by now. So it is a bit, but thankfully, like, yeah, there are some of them where if you get to know them, they will like let you go without a bringer. But for me, it's my least favorite thing about the comedy circuit is the bringer, is the pain, because like it's a lot of stress. I'm not sure if they're gonna show up, and I'm like I'm sitting there, like I would spend 2 hours rehearsing, and then I would I would go, like I would do the commute and everything. I'm mentally ready, and then someone goes, "No, you're not going on." And the last time it happened to me, I don't think I'm ever gonna go back to that place, because like I don't get it why sometimes when you have an open mic night, sometimes you go in and it's packed, like absolutely packed. Maybe someone was there who was like relatively famous or an influencer, and it just absolutely packed. And it was one of those nights. It was absolutely packed. Even if I had a bringer, they wouldn't have a seat, right? And I wasn't. They didn't let me go on. The thing that made it hurt even worse is that I went as a bringer for someone else to the same night a couple of months later, and he lets on 3 people without bringers in an empty night. So I'm just like, what is the point in here? Like, I would imagine a bringer makes a lot more difference in a night where it's empty. So you like, if someone doesn't bring someone, you don't put them on. But I don't understand the logic behind this. I don't see why some people stick to that, because maybe they don't want to develop the reputation that they let people without a bringer. I don't know, but it's one of those things that really pissed me off about the open mic comedy circuit, is the whole bringer stuff. Again, I don't know what the solution is, but I'm just going to complain. So,
I think it's one of those where it's a difficult thing, because we've all done nights where they are non-bringers and you turn up and there's nobody to perform to. Yeah. And you kind of think, well, what am I actually getting out of this? But there are plenty out there that will go, okay, look, if you've been supporting the night for as long as you have, whatever, then, you know, if you don't have one, then you don't have one. And then they should let you on. But if you're the sort of person that goes, okay, I want to do this, and for the last 3 times you couldn't bring anybody.
Yeah, of course.
Just don't book them again until they bring somebody or whatever. But I get that. It does. There's been times where I've messaged somebody and said, you know, my bringers let me down. It's happened. I can't help it. I don't know what to do. Let me know if you want me to show up or not.
Yeah.
I said, because unfortunately I'm in the same situation as you. I'm not going to pay to go down to see a comedy night and not perform and pay all the money when my whole point is I want to perform. That's it. But then I think sometimes there are nights where I've done things where the bringer's let me down. I've messaged the guy and said, look, he's let me down. I'm coming down anyway because I've booked this night out. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to watch. There's a few people I know on the bill. If you don't want to put me on, don't put me on. It's entirely up to you. Yeah. And I find sometimes with those that people will go, most of them will go, yeah. But I can completely understand if you turn up and say, look, I can't, would you rather have me here to perform and support the other acts or not have me at all? Yeah. You have one less person in the audience.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I do this, like say that all the time. Like I would message it. And like you said, a lot of the time people are nice enough, especially if it's a night that you go on regularly. Yeah. And it's like, maybe you brought people the last 4 times you came in here. This time you didn't have a bringer, that they'll let it slide, and that's going to be fine. But yeah, logistically speaking, having to have a bringer for every gig, if you want to do like 4 to 5 gigs, it really is, it's just not doable. It's not feasible. Like it takes, because like if I do a bringer group type of thing, then it's like now I have to travel to London twice to do 5 minutes of performance.
Yeah.
And the maths just goes way out of the window with that. But again, I think the goal is to stop complaining and get good enough so that you don't have to do bringer nights anymore. I think that's the lesson behind this whole thing, basically.
Yeah, possibly. So what tips would you give somebody then who's about to embark on this journey for the very, very first time? What would you say, the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Just do it. That's really, it's so cheesy, and it's just about getting up and doing it. That's really, because you can spend a lot of time in your head, and I did. Like the idea of doing stand-up comedy started with me like when I was like 22, right? And like I like my first gig was last year. I was 31, so it's a big massive fucking gap. But yeah. I'm just really good at like spending a lot of time in my head. Like figure out an angle, figure out what is scaring you from doing it.
Yeah.
And see if there's a cheat code. For me, that was doing improv, because the idea of being up on stage on my own was terrifying. Like it was, you're talking to someone who had to beat a stutter twice, right? I had a stutter in Arabic and I fixed it, and then came over here and I started to stutter in English and I had to fix that again. So it was, it's I have a really bad like problem with like speaking and like regulating my speech and making sure that I come off as clear as possible. And the only way to beat that was just by gigging and doing the improv and being up on stage with people who are like-minded and just as nervous as I am. Just kind of like, let's just say, loop me up to the whole performance scene.
Yeah.
And that was because I figured out what exactly I had a problem with when it comes to going up and performing. And that was just the nervousness. And doing the improv like really helped. So yeah, that would be like my overall advice, is to figure out a way, like the least path, like what's it called, the paths of least resistance into going up to that gig.
Yeah.
And people, like you gotta be friends with some people who are like really supportive. Because for me, it was someone that I met in improv, and I told them I wanted to do stand-up, and they were like, oh yeah, we've done stand-up as well. I started going to open mics with them, watching a lot of people bomb as well. That gave me courage. That really helps. So watching other people eat shit, that's how I get more motivation. There's no easy way of doing it. There is no, I say this as someone who comes from like a technical background, because I'm a software engineer. I operate with this test, pass or fail, and if it passed, then it's going to pass every single time.
Yeah,
that doesn't work that way. It's so much more like flexible and fluid, and it's all over the place, and it's an emotional roller coaster. So yeah,
I like that. I'm in IT as well. I create a test. If it passes, it will always pass.
Yeah, that's it. I'm always expecting that little dot to go green, and if it goes red, then something is wrong. And like it's. But having the same test, pass every time, that's not something that you can rely on a comedy.
That's actually a really interesting way of putting it. The whole thing about just doing it, I think, is as like you say, is cheesy, but it's so true. Because the longer you leave it, the less time you have, which sounds so obvious. But if you get into it and you start thinking, I could do something with this, I think you've got to be in a certain age bracket really to make it work. There's very, very few people out there that will start at 45 whatever, and then just go and hit it hard and make something of it and make a career out of it. There are a few, but they are very few and far between. Sometimes it feels like it's very much a young person's game. So if you have the thought of doing it at the age of 25, don't wait till you're 35, because if you get to 36 and 37, you go, I'm actually feeling like I'm quite good and quite confident, and I'm starting to get some paid gigs.
Yeah.
Just think what you could have done in the previous 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't be a 22-year-old and then don't start till like you're 31. So like this guy. So it's like, being trapped in your own head about how things are going to go the first time is pretty much just like what's it called? You know, those like sand things where you just get sucked into it. It's very dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I didn't start till I was 45, and I'm in love with this circuit. I love doing it. And if I have a break of like just 2 or 3 weeks, and if I've got a gig coming up and I look forward to it and I do it and it goes well, it's just like, that's why I do it.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun. And then look back and kind of go, I wish there was resources around. They make it as easy then as it is now. Because now it's so easy to get onto nights and get involved in it because there's so much more resource out there to listen to people and stuff. But back 15, 20 years ago, you know, the websites weren't existing, the podcasts weren't existing, people's experiences weren't. There was no Instagram that was you could go on and see what somebody was doing and stuff like that. So there's so much resource out there. Is just take it all in and then just go and do it.
Yeah, and it can be sometimes overwhelming because there's a lot of information. There's a lot of it's information on Instagram and like feedback that you get from comedians. You've got to be very careful with feedback that you get from comedians, especially when you're taking feedback from people who are like still on the open mic circuit, because at the end of the day, like when they give you feedback, they're giving you feedback as an audience member, and just like any other audience member, they're gonna have certain things that hits harder with them compared to other people. And I don't know what the overall point of this was, but something about like having to pave your own way and making sure that you do things that make you laugh at the end of the day.
And learn to find. We'll give you more than one tip, but learn to find your voice.
Yeah,
know what your voice is and what you sound like and how you come across and stuff like that. Because when you start out, there's that thing you've got in your head is I'm this type of comedian. But then as you start maturing and start writing, your writing may well change. Yeah. In which case you're no longer that type of comedian. So allow yourself to go along with the journey, but don't feel like you have to stay in one lane either.
Yeah. A lot of people get trapped in that. And I think the best way of it is to just keep writing. It's like constantly writing new things. Don't like develop sets that you take to competitions, but like I don't see the point in performing the exact same set over and over at open, like different open mics. Try new things, try new ideas, like shift things around. One of the things that I learned when I did the course with Jeff Nissen is your set should be able to move around. You should be able to take the bits out and reorder them, and it would still work on its own. Mm-hmm. So things like making it modular so that you can be a bit more free on stage when your set is a bit more modular and it doesn't rely on bits to be done before it for it to make sense.
Yeah.
Try to find the fun in that, because if you don't find that fun, then oops, you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, I think modular comedy also helps when you move on from the fives to the sevens to the tens, because you can start then pulling information from other bits and putting them together, and then you might have, I've said it before, you might have 2 5s, but those 2 5s are a 10. Now, can you get those two to merge together in some kind of way so that it makes some kind of sense? It doesn't have to be the complete story, but just adding a little tag on how you can feed from one story to another. Yeah, you've got your 10, and if you break those 5s down into 3 2s, well, not 3 2s, but you know what I mean. You can even halve them, and then you can build your 7s from there. And that can also dictate how you write in terms of the material you're actually going to put out. It's always the smartest way to do it.
Because now I do 10 minutes quite often, and for me, I find that with 10 minutes, I have to have a plan of how my set is going to go. Whereas with 5 minutes now, I have like maybe 3 90-second bits. Yeah. And I can shift them around. I always have the same opener, but the way I do it is that I start out with the same opener, and then the second, the last 3 minutes change. But with 10s and 15s, I've done a couple of 15s now. you got to have an overall plan, right?
Yep.
And because I'm not going to be able to maintain the same energy that I maintain when I'm on for 5 minutes. You're going to have some lull moments, and that's okay, because people will need to fucking, gather some energy for the next bit.
Yeah.
But for me, like with that, you got to focus on the substance a lot more, because like it's okay to have gaps where people are not laughing, but if the material is not interesting, people will lose their interest. Like if the laughter is the only thing that's keeping the attention, that doesn't go very far when you go into the 10 and 15 minutes sets.
Yeah.
They want an overall beginning, ending, like a beginning, middle, and ending with a level of cohesiveness to it, where you don't really have to focus on that much when it comes to the 5 minute stuff. That's one of the things that I'm learning now as I do more 10 minutes and more like 10-minute plus ones.
Yeah, I had the thing last night where I was doing a bit, and in my head, my brain's gone, this bit's going on for too long. This setup is far too long. You're waffling.
Because that's good. Your attention span is shit. That's
yeah. And I'm the one that's talking. But the punchline paid off in the end, which was kind of nice. But it was still that I'm fully aware I'm getting somewhere. I'm not getting the laughs that I would have liked along the way. There's something wrong in that little section. I need to go back. I need to change it. I need to take out the unnecessary words again. And then it comes back to your whole thing. I need to learn it exactly how it should be done.
Yeah. That is the key. It's like, I was in denial about that, because I was like, oh no, it's just, I see a lot of comedians, they just go up with bullet points and they just like riff off and all of that. But then again, when you see the same comedian over and over again, it's kind of like, oh, you see how the sausage is made. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of cartilage in there, and that's okay. And
I like that. I like that a lot.
And you got to be okay with that. So it's to be honest with you, I'm going to take this analogy further. It's just learning how to digest the cartilage. That's the point of having it on.
So what are your ambitions then for the future regarding comedy?
Get out of the open, bring us okay now. Honestly, I didn't really I got in phases between like not having a plan and having a plan, but I know I need to do a lot more competitions next year. That's going to be my focus. I've got a lot of I'm going to do the So You Think You're Funny. I'm going to try to apply for as many competitions as possible. Yeah. And that's my goal for next year. I didn't do that much this year. I did mostly gong shows. I beat the Blackout once, and I beat the Big Belly. I might give the King Gong a shot next year.
Yeah.
But my short-term ambitions are try to win some big competition, or at least attempt. Do a lot more of those next year.
So is that with the aim to be noticed, to progress further, or just to go, tick that one off?
It's a mixture. It's because I use these again, technical person. I need a test to pass, right? Like in my head, I can't just keep doing open mics over and over again. I need a test. I need milestone that I can use to jump off to the next bit. And for me, it is about I want to win competitions, get good videos out of those competitions, use those videos to go to to apply to semi-pro circuits, and hopefully get a spot in there. Yeah, that's my plan, is to, because there's no other, you can go the route of being incredibly social and hyper connected and build up a network, and that you can get a lot of really good gigs that way. I just don't like socializing, so that's my problem. So I'm not very good at it. I'm not very good at because I see people who are natural. They're they go on, they start a conversation very quickly. They're just talking, and now they have a very sneaky way of asking for spots without making it seem like they're begging for it. And I notice it, and I cringe, and I can't do that myself. So I gotta just win competition. That's my only way out. Basically.
Fair enough. So if the competitions do go well and everything goes swimmingly, and you get onto your semi-pro nights and pro nights and stuff like that, and then things really rocket off, and BBC come knocking or Netflix come knocking and say, "Hey, come and do your bit," and you sit down with the producer to work out what's going on. And they say, "What walk-on music do you want? What do you pick?"
Well, there's a cheeky answer to that, which is it's a song by Outkast called "Bombs Over Baghdad." I love that song so much. I just the name has got no meaning to it. They asked him, was like, why did you call it Bombs Over Baghdad? He was like, it just sounded funny. I was like, I agree. That's exactly why you should use that kind of title. It's either that or D for Dangerous by Arctic Monkeys.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite songs of all time. It's probably a very niche reference. Most people are not going to get it, but I'm a big Arctic Monkeys fan, and D for Dangerous is like my favorite, one of my favorite songs. I'm not sure if BBC is going to play that, but I think it's relatively safe for them.
Okay. That's I mean, the music thing I always find is, do you do it to try and lift the crowd before you go on? Do you try and do it?
No. I want to lift my crowd with the first joke. I don't want. No. I don't want cheap. No. I don't want a cheap reaction. I want the first reaction from the crowd to be the reaction to my first joke. So it's not going to be the intention of, it's just a song that I like. It's got no message behind it. Although it does, it's got a part where it goes, he's nearing the brink, but he thinks first the parallel universe might be the perfect scene. And that's how I feel like when I'm on stage and I'm nervous. I'm like, oh shit, I'm nearing the brink.
Talking of nerves, how do you think yourself as a nervous person before on stage?
Well, yes. People tell me it doesn't show now, but I see it when I watch the video. I see I see the parts when I'm getting nervous. It's a lot of things that I had to unlearn, like the looking down. It's because you can't just not be nervous. If you're a nervous person, you're a nervous person. But it's learning all of the traits that you project on stage that make it apparent that you're nervous and get rid of them. So I'm still nervous, but I'm much better at not looking down all the time. I'm much better at not saying too many M's and R's. I'm much better at saying the words of the joke exactly how I meant to say it.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought I just have to gig. It's just a muscle. You just got to train it and train it and train it. But after a while, you got to be a lot more intentional about what you're doing. And if just gigging is not working, that it's there for a reason, because you're being stubborn about certain things that you're doing and you don't want to change them. For example, like being confronting the fact that you're looking down way too much and being able to fix that. Confronting the fact that you say too many filler words and being able to end that. And once you start to eliminate all of these things, the image of you being less nervous makes you less nervous as well. So it's like a bit of a feedback loop that happens. But for me, the best way that I was able to handle it is by approaching it technically and going, okay, what can I get rid of to make it seem like I'm less nervous? Because I'm just not going to be not nervous. I'm going to be nervous all the time. At least as of now, maybe it'll go away in the future. But learning how to hide it, that really does help.
Yeah, I've got a trait where I look down too much, and you don't realize it, but because you break eye contact with people in the audience, you immediately break that connection.
Yeah, and you feel it as a crowd member when you're sitting down and watching someone. Yeah.
And I used to do a thing where I used to gravitate backwards on the stage.
Yeah. It's like I was stop.
Get me as far away as possible. And it's just but you again, it's nervous energy that makes you kind of do that, and you kind of think, what's the impression I'm giving to those people in the crowd? If you can do the thing where you don't look down and you're constantly making sure you're looking up, you've got the chin up, you kind of open your vocal cords, and you'll probably become clearer as well when you talk, because the looking down usually then comes with mumbling. Yeah,
and you're basically muffling yourself, because now your cheeks are up, you got your title up like this. It doesn't. People can't hear anything. But it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of these things that you think don't matter, but they really just make so much more of a difference. Yeah, and you notice it with the way that the jokes get the response is if you maintain the eye contact with people and don't do that. Like a lot of people do the fake eye contact, and now I notice it where they just scan the room. And we would advise not to do that in my course. Is just pick points in the crowd and just look at them, and that makes it a lot more conversational rather than just doing robotic scanning.
Yeah,
and people like sometimes I'm saying in crowds what is he looking at? I'm just I'm trying to figure out what is he looking at? Who's staring up in the fucking ceiling? I don't know. Yeah. But you notice that, and being able to look at the people in the crowd is so important.
I want to set you the comedian's challenge if you're up for it.
Oh shit! Is that the one where you tell a shitty joke?
Yes. See, he's listened. He knows what's coming. For those of you that don't, I like to set all the comedians a challenge to tell a joke live on stage. They get to pick the joke from this joke book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by an author called Sid Finch. They don't get to pick it by words. They get to pick it by page number. So what they get is a complete mystery. It's going to be terrible. But it's always interesting to see how comedians will either build it into their set, if they will, or tell it standalone, or however they want to do it. So if you're up for this, give me a number between 5 and 95. And if you pick one that's already been picked, we go again.
5 and 95.
Yeah.
27.
Both gone. Next page. Next one.
29.
That's gone.
Yes. All right. Let's do 33.
That's gone.
Oh, fucking hell. All right. Stay out. Okay. Get out of this range. 57.
Please. Aha. Right. We have 2 jokes on the page. We have joke 1 or joke 2.
Joke 2.
Okay. Why did Humpty Dumpty have a great fall? To get over his disappointing summer.
All right. I'm going to do this joke then.
So where can people find you online then?
Just Instagram. Serajing around.
Serajing around.
Yeah, with an underscore in between the 2 words.
Okay, I'll put the links in the description for everybody else to find you, book you hopefully. And it's been an absolute pleasure having this chat with you today. It's been so much fun.
That's a lot of fun. Yeah, it went by very quickly. Yeah, I didn't realize now pretty much. Yeah.
You can find us on Instagram at Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to this on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, rating, etc. It gets us up the charts and more people get to hear these lovely comedians I'm speaking to. Lastly, just want to say thank you again, Seraj, for your time today.
Pleasure having.
And everybody else, I will speak to you all very, very soon.